It's me, Chloe T, and today I want to motivate you to make something that's going to motivate you. I was right. It is a motivational poster. So this project, I had some of my typical design considerations in mind, always incorporating the secondhand or used items, keeping it kind of simple and cheap, but still something that you would want to hang up on your wall. And this is kind of a cool project because it's really easy to customize, you know, the painting, the quote, just there's a lot of ways you can make it your own. So let me show you how I made this. So basically this project is taking an existing painting and then creating a stencil and spray painting on the quote. So the first thing that you're going to need is a painting. I went to Goodwill in my town and I just started looking around through all the things that they have. There are a bunch of paintings, a bunch of picture frames and stuff like that, and eventually just found these two paintings that I really liked, kind of like nature scenes. They're a good size too for what I wanted to do. So now that you have your painting picked out, you have to also decide on a quote. So many quotes to pick from. We all have our own favorites that motivate us. I went with, as you saw, easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. Then you need to turn that into a stencil, more or less. So how I did that is really simple. I just used Google Docs. So I kind of went through how I wanted to look on the painting, what I'd be okay covering up, and what I wanted to show through on the painting, and then just kind of figuring out what that's going to look like. It's easier to just kind of mess around on a computer and get that sorted. And then I went ahead and found fonts that I liked, which actually took me a really long time. The next thing was just sizing them correctly. So it did take me a few tries of printing them out and putting them on the poster and kind of seeing what size worked best for me. But then once I got there, I just sized everything up to that. And then the next part is pretty much the most time-consuming part of the process, and that is cutting out the stencil. So to do this, I just used an X-Acto knife, and I was just doing it on the back of some piece of like scrap shelving. But the shelving was pretty smooth, which was actually nice because it made the X-Acto knife just slide over it better. And so I was able to cut out the stencil. The other thing with the stencil is you don't exactly just want to lay it down on the painting because it can kind of flop up or just paint will get under it and you won't get those nice crisp lines that you want. So I went ahead and got some adhesive from Hobby Lobby. Now this stuff is called Stencil Ease Spray Adhesive, and it is just made for stencils, so it's not going to be so sticky that you can never remove the stencil, but it'll be sticky enough that again it'll actually adhere to the painting and get more crisp lines when you spray paint. This was my first time ever using this Stencil Ease spray adhesive, so I wasn't 100% sold on it. So I did do a quick test, and to do the test I just cut out an E quickly and stuck it to the back of one of the paintings because I figured that'd be like the similar material. I think it's always good when you are using things you've never used before to do a quick test. You don't want to ruin the work you've already done. For me, if I ruined those stencils, that would have set me back like a few hours on the project. Did that, tested it on the E, and as you can see it turned out really well. There was still a little bleeding out, but I think it helps if you just keep the spray paint really perpendicular to the surface that you're working on so that you're not spraying, you know, into the crevices. If you spray straight down, you'll just get less bleeding. So then I turned my attention to my final painting. I just started kind of laying out the stencils that I had created and kind of confirming the final design and the placement of the letters and everything. So for my design that I was going for, like as you can see on it, it has the bars on the top and bottom, and then it has the letters. So it's like two different types of stencils that you have to think about. You have like your negative space stencil and then your positive space stencil. So this one's kind of cool. The background shows through the letters, whereas this one, the letters cover the background. So I was kind of thinking about that, and then I did end up getting just a little bit mathematical on it to see how big my top and bottom bars could be. Then I went ahead and taped the section. I decided to do it in two parts, so I'd do like the bars part first, the top and bottom, and then the middle part after that. And so I put down tape across it, which I'll kind of regret, and you'll see why in a little bit. Then I just blocked off the whole middle section so that I wouldn't end up with any spray paint on there. And then I went ahead and sprayed the letters with the adhesive, and stuck those on, making sure to try and keep everything nice and aligned and the spacing really good, adjusting as I needed to, because this is going to be, there's no going back after this. After the spray painting, this is how it's going to look. So then for spray painting this part, I wanted to do it outside, just better ventilation. So I laid down some newspaper, shook up the spray paint, and got to it. So after the spray paint dried for an hour or so, I removed the stencil. As you can see, when I pulled up the tape, it did actually take some of the painting off with it, which is obviously a bit of a bummer, and that's kind of why I regret using painter's tape. I would say in the future, use a spray adhesive on newspaper to block things off you don't want, because it comes off really clean and it's more gentle than tape. The adhesive on the tape is just too strong. And after that, I needed the other lines. So I did the second set of stenciling, laid that all down nicely. Again, this time I just used the spray adhesive on the newspaper to cover everything that I wanted so that I wouldn't accidentally mess up the painting again. So then I went through that whole thing again, spray painted, came back in, removed the stencil, and it looked really good. There was still some adhesive kind of on it. So to get rid of that, I just used some mineral oil or baby oil. This stuff you can find in the baby section. The baby section where you buy babies, and it's just gentle, but it's good for cleaning things without affecting it too much. So I just kind of rubbed this on and got off the adhesive that was left over. So then after that, I wanted to go back and kind of fix those spots that the tape pulled up. Basically, I just took some paint that I had, this like Blick set, and mixed it up and then dabbed it on and just did my best to kind of repaint what I had accidentally torn up. It took a few layers and it's not perfect, but I think if you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't really notice it. So I think I did a pretty good job of fixing up those imperfections. The other thing was that on one of the letters, there was a little bit less paint than I would have liked. So I just sprayed the spray paint onto an ad, and that kind of gives you a little bit to work with. And then I used a paintbrush and just dabbed that on. And I was able to kind of fix that and get a little more paint in that area that I felt like there was some paint missing. And then at that point, I was pretty happy with it, but it still just felt like it was a little unfinished. Some of the lines weren't as crisp as I would have liked. So what I decided to do to finish it up and to really make it pop from the background is use paint markers to get the outline of all the letters. And I think this really, it just added the next level and it looked a lot better after that. It took a few layers of the paint markers, but it went really well. The paint marker is another thing you can kind of grab at any like crafting shop or anything. And that's it. I was super happy with how this ended up turning out. I really think the colors go together nicely with the painting and then just the spray paint choice that I picked. And the white really makes it pop. The bars look nice. I was able to kind of fix those mistakes. And it all just came together really nicely. So nicely, in fact, that I actually decided to make another one. So I made this. Why Ration Passion. And this I first heard from a National Geographic explorer. His name's Michael Bickey. He said his grandma was the one who actually would say it to him, which I think is really cute. But it's kind of just like, do what you love now and why wait? On that note, I hope you're feeling inspired. Thank you so much for watching. Make the rest of your day awesome. Take care.